In today's playthrough, we continue playing Triplock by Chip Theory Games. Last time we completed room 1 of the station, so today we move on to room 2. Let's go ahead and take a look. The satisfying sound of locks releasing indicated success. Immediately, a rusty floor panel began to slide open, causing Charlie to jump sideways to avoid falling in. "Follow me!" was all they heard as the ornate silver mask disappeared from view down the steel ladder. "Lead the way, stranger," Elliot replied, carefully setting foot on the metal rungs. Others were less trusting, but no one could resist the mystery, and soon they were all down the ladder and into a room full of motion. Gears spun everywhere, and steam filled the air, making the room feel alive. A control box on the wall to the left held a complex lock. "This room has a mind of its own," the stranger remarked. "It's a single massive machine built entirely to analyze and shut down attempts to bypass its defenses. Who wants a shot at this one?" Sounds like fun. But before we get into the room and all of its rules, let's go ahead and pick our character. If we remember, with the station, after every room, successful or not, you have to pick a new character. In room 1, we successfully completed it with Axe. So here in room 2, we're going to go on. My random result for my choice after room 1 was Dr. Elliot. But I gave you guys the opportunity to help me along and help me pick which character should I play at. And the pretty much massive outgoing for the character that I should choose, again mainly through social media, was not Dr. Elliot, but in fact was Dante Harvard, airship pilot. So in this playthrough, we will be working with Dante. Let's go ahead and take a look at his special skills and then his backstory. You may have your skill bead on Dante. While bead is here, you may re-roll one of your action die you rolled this turn. So, reading these rules as stated, within your turn, if you remember, you can do one of 3 things. Your skill, you can do a roll action, or you can do a solve diagram action. Order is very important. You have to completely finish one action before you can start another. So, according to these rules, that would mean that my first action, if I'm going to want to be able to use his special ability, will need to be placing my skill bead on him so I can re-roll one of mine. That's going to be key. I don't want to get caught up rolling these guys and realize, hey, I want to re-roll one of these and I haven't done the skill bead yet or something. So we're going to want to keep that in mind. That order is important. So we'll go ahead and set him down next to the board. Go ahead and set our 0 points next to his key. And we're going to go ahead and pull out the round card because I do believe here in room 2, we do need to monitor rounds. So let's go ahead and pull out his character card and see what Dante is all about. As they prepared to touch down, Dante wrinkled his nose and scowled. Flying the airships around the world had its perks, but the return trip to New London wasn't one of them. Even in the clouds, you can smell the city miles away. Even the clouds themselves gave the city away, curdled to its unnatural shade of brown he hadn't seen anywhere else. The name itself had become a joke among the other elite Royal Company guards. Parliament and the Royal Company had made the deal together to make New London the hub of industry and innovation. London had never really recovered from the war. the announcement went over like an airship without an engine. New London! To celebrate our rebirth and partnership with the Royal Company, Senator Watkins had declared from the balcony over his town square. Nothing changed for Dante or for New London. He kept flying the company's secretive shipments from around the country, while New London citizens continued living in despair with no hope of upward mobility. Meanwhile, the Royal Company got a new hub with no oversight when it came to shipping their strange cargo. Despite the city's stagnation, his employer's arrogance worked well for Dante and his co-pilot. He could steal and take whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. You could leave the ship on autopilot for hours without much worry. This afforded him the time to learn to break the locks on the tiny cargo bay at the back of the ship. The small crew ate like kings. They drank like kings. Nobody questioned oddities in the manifest as long as the safes were all accounted for. So many safes. Pickable safes. If you know what you're doing. Hours after his most recent touchdown, Dante hit up the cargo bay once more to see if he could uncover a bite and a buzz. But all that was there was a wooden box. It had an address and a time inscribed. Oddly enough, the address was familiar. The same street as the destination of many of New London's hush-hush shipments. His ship, the Osprey, wasn't scheduled to take off until tomorrow afternoon. Maybe he'd wander over to Ambrosia Avenue and see what was going on. Airship quarters can leave a person restless. Very cool. So that's Dante. Dante Harvard, our character we have. Let's go ahead and take a look at the special rules for this solo scenario. Our goal is in 8 rounds or fewer to earn 5 points and then solve the master lock sequence or the room wins. Okay, so now with this one, we know there's 2 extra things that we have to do that we didn't have in room 1. The first being we'll have to keep an eye on our rounds, being that we have to get this completed by round 8. So there is a time frame on how long we can keep going. Secondly, we are going to start using these diagram cards for the first time because we need 5 points. Once we finish going through all the roles, we'll pull up our diagram and start talking a little strategy and how we plan on tackling that diagram. The lock for the room is a combination lock, so that means it's again left to right. So we have to have not only these 3 symbols in the visible lock mechanisms, but we also have to have them in that exact order. We are looking for the spring, the push, and the levers. The room rules, solo setup, which is what I have done here. If you need a reminder on setting up the game, I'll make sure I put a link to my setup video and you can see how this is done. But I set it up according to the rules and what I have within that video. The room goes second. All right, so that's our next change. If you remember from room 1, the room went first. So this time we get to go first. All disarmed failsafes must be placed on this card rather than gathering them for yourself. Okay. We'll go ahead and, I said we were going to talk about this later, but let's go ahead and break down one little thing very quickly because of this little rule here. Normally, when you disarm failsafes, when you roll that die, you take the failsafe off and you put it within your failsafe stack. And you do that because one of the diagrams in here is a collect diagram. And what that means is you're trying to get a certain number of either the explosions or the gear locks. Well, being that we are not going to have access to those, the room must be using these. That tells us that one of these 4 diagrams that we're going to have available to us to earn potential points is immediately wiped off the board. So we're going to want to make sure we don't accidentally pick that one. On the room's turn, all 4 mechanism stacks rotate. So once the room starts, the very first thing it's going to do is rotate our mechanisms. Again, we're going to rotate to the left, again, because that is how it is described in the rules. At any time a mechanism failsafe is removed, flip that mechanism stack. If this is a new mechanism, if the new mechanism does not have a failsafe, add one to it from this card. Okay, so that also tells us why we are putting the failsafes on here and what they're going to be being used for. So again here, if we do the disarm and we remove the failsafe onto the room, we are immediately then going to flip that stack. That's going to be something very important to keep in mind, because we can potentially use that to our advantage during the game, to where if we need to flip a mechanism, we are technically going to have potentially 2 options in order to get that done. The actual flip or the disarm. Because if, say, I needed this one flipped and I roll the disarm, all I have to do is disarm this failsafe and I'll let the room flip it for me. The other thing to keep in mind is where it's talking about how if there is no failsafe on the mechanism, you immediately put one on here. So that means these mechanism stacks will always be hidden to us. We're going to have to really try hard to remember what each one of these are. Because what's going to happen is we'd remove this failsafe, we'd flip it, so that would leave that, now on the bottom, that mechanism uncovered. So then if we were to ever flip it again, it would be, that mechanism would be face up. So we would take the failsafe and place it on there. Again, always keeping every single one of these hidden. So that is going to add additional complexity to this room, that, we won't be able to, keep our failsafes off and be able to just look down and seeing what they are. We'll have to really remember what's going on. So those are the room rules and the turn layouts. So let's go ahead and draw a diagram card and see what we will be going after. All right, so here the very first we see of our options, we have the collect, which is what I was talking about, how with this card we want to collect 1 gear lock and 1 explosion for 2 points. We would not want to choose this one because, again, we will not have access to those fail-safes. So we can just go ahead and skip that one. Trip, this gives us no points, so we definitely aren't going to want to pick this one because our goal is to get 5 points. The next one is a 5, which is probably what we're going to select. So let's go ahead and skip that one for now, just so we can talk about our other options. The next one is a combo. So this one is very similar to the room, where it has to be, again, left to right, but where it is on here, so it could be this, or this, or this, so forth and so on. It just has to be left to right. If we go for this one, our reward is going to be 2 points, and we're going to get to draw a new diagram. So this would be a small progression into trying to get what we want. But if we go for this one, we can immediately get our 5 points right off the rip. We only need 1 extra mechanism, but they also can be in any order. So actually, I feel like this is actually going to be simpler for us, and it's going to give us our 5 points that we need, which is exactly what we want to be able to move on and start working on the room's mechanisms. Again, which is key because we only have 8 rounds to do this in. So for this one, we need a push, we need a gear, and we need a key. And we can see, how does this line up for us with the room? Let's go ahead and pull this up, see if we can't see how close we are. So we need, for our diagram, we need the gear first, which kind of helps us because the other side of the of the gear is the spring. So once we get this, all we'll need to do is flip this and we're going to be in a good spot there. Same thing with the push. That's actually identical. So, that will help us out. That's same. And then next we have the key, which on its other side is the code, and the lever, which is the padlock. So these are separate, but having two that kind of match up to the room is really going to help us out once we finish this and move on here. We're just going to try to keep all of this in mind of where things are and try to use these similarities to our advantage as we're solving this one. So let's go ahead and select that we want this diagram. Normally in the game, you would leave this flipped up so your opponent can't see, but since it's just us playing solo, having that right there works just fine. Now that we have everything set up, we know the rules, we know our backstory, let's go ahead and start Triplock, Room 2. Again, we start off with our turns. So the very first thing we're going to do is we will go ahead and put our skill on Dante because as our first action, because our other action available possibilities is to go for points. But again, this is going to take 1, 2, 3 rounds just to get 2 points. So even if we did the 2 points and the simpler one, that's still only 4. You've taken up 3 rounds to do that. It would take another card or another one of these, potentially up to 6 rounds. We're only talking about 8. This is almost a no-go, just because it would just take too many rounds to get us the points that we need. And with only having 8 available to us, there's just not enough time. The next possibility is, let's go ahead and do the reset. This isn't very important to us because we don't have an opponent to reset onto, so this won't ever get used. The third type is the action, where we get to roll an additional action. Now, when we look at the actions on the dice that we have available to us, one of them is the reveal. We have a couple in here, especially here on round 1. Flipping, swapping. A lot of these don't do us a lot of good when we don't know anything right off the rip. So working on these 2 actions, where again, it's going to take us 2 turns just to get 1 extra action, and we don't even know if we're going to get a very good item. I don't foresee this being very beneficial to us. However, by placing our bead on Dante and using him for our skill, when we roll, we could get very lucky and roll 2 things that we do want to use and not take advantage of it. Or we could get something like the reveal, conceal, alter and be, hey, don't want that one. Let me go ahead and try to re-roll that one. It's almost like getting your free action, but you get it every turn because the likelihood of you rolling, 2 that you very want is kind of rare. We will have to keep in mind, though, that one possible option is always the turn both die in for any action that we want. Of course, if we do that, then we won't have anything to re-roll, so we'll be kind of busting this. But again, being that we get to do this every turn, that's almost like the 1, 2, 1, 2, the every 2. So I think using his skill is the way we want to go, the benefit to us. So let's go ahead and roll, see what our first look is. And so we got the disarm and we got the swap. Okay. Now the disarm will tell us what one of these are, but it's going to flip it. And the downside to doing that is if we figure out what one of them is and it's what we actually want, we could then be messing ourselves up by doing that rotate. The swap, we don't know what anything is. There's really no point in swapping at this point. So I think in this situation, our best bet is to, unfortunately, not take advantage of our Dante. But we will. Let's go ahead. We'll take advantage of the Dante. We will go ahead and re-roll this one. using our Dante skill, because we might you know, find a reason to no, let's see, which one do we want? Because what I'm thinking is I'm gonna turn both of these in to peek, because I do want to know what some of these things are. So I really want to peek at these two to see where we're started. However, if I re-roll one of these, I might get lucky enough and just roll a peek, which would then let me peek, do what I want, and then be able to either swap or you know, disarm. I think I want to keep this one because the likelihood of these being like perfect, exactly what I want, not flipped, is pretty low. Right now, I almost don't care about the order of which things are, because I'm going for the trip. We think it can be in any order. So that one is not as important. When I get to the room, being able to rotate things might be more important. But I think flipping is going to be more important here, and this will give me a diagram. So you never know. I might pull a diagram that has an even better 5-point or something. So let's try to keep this one. Let's go ahead and re-roll him to go for a peek. If I don't get the peek for my roll, then we will go ahead and just turn them both in. See, and I did not. I got the flip. Does me no good. So we will turn both of these in for the peek. And we will go ahead and take a look at the first. So again, we're going to look at these two. So we have the levers. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we are going for. And the levers do not do us any good here, because the opposite side is the padlock. However, we do know that we need the levers for the room. So while this doesn't help us with our diagram, we want to remember the room needs this. So we have this in its correct side. So we want to try to make sure we remember what this is, so we don't accidentally flip that one. Next, we're going to go ahead and take a peek at this one. And we have the key, and that is exactly what we need and where we need it. So in fact, going back, where if I would have gotten my perfect roll and I would have gotten my peek, where are you? If I would have gotten my peek and I would have left this one, that would have messed me up. I wouldn't want to use this, because I wouldn't have wanted to flip this one, because it is what I need for this one. Wouldn't wanted to flip this one, because it is what I need for the room. So missing that roll in this situation really wasn't that horrible for us. So now let's go ahead and let the room go. So for the room's turn, we're going to go ahead and shift everything. Okay, we're going to go ahead and now the room's gone. Nothing else for the room to do. So it's our turn. So we're going to click up our rounds. We're into the second round. We'll go ahead and leave our skill bead on Dante, because I do want to keep with this. So we want to try to make sure we remember what we know. So we have the levers, and we have the key, and unknown. So let's go ahead and roll and see what we have. Okay, so for this one, we now have there we go, and there. Okay, so this one is going to get interesting. So we'll be able to peek at 2. And we can do the hidden one. So we definitely want to be able to see what we have going on here. But do I want to risk flipping this? Do I want to risk this being exactly what I want and flipping it and messing myself over? I don't think I do. Okay, so what we will go ahead and do, we will peek at either one of these two. It doesn't really matter. We know what they are. We know where the lever and the key. We want to peek at this one. So we're going to go ahead and peek at these two once again. And depending on what this is, we will either re-roll him, or go ahead and risk it and see what this does for us. That's risky. Let's see. All right, let's go ahead and peek at these. Again, we're hoping to see the key here. See if we're keeping ourselves in check. And then with this one, we have the pull. And so we want to flip this one. We want this to be the push. All right, so we'll go ahead and use Dante's ability. And let's see. We will re-roll this one to see if we can get something better for us. And we got something even worse. We can't use that at all. So now the room will go. Okay, there we go. Now it's our turn again. So we're going to go ahead and tick that up to number 3. And so let's see here. So we know we have the key, we have the pull, so we want to flip this one. We know this one is the levers, so in fact that means we also really know what this one is. We just don't know what side it is, because since we know what these 3 are, there's only 4, so we know this must be the gear spring. We just don't know, you know, which one it might be. So again, I think I'm gonna leave the Dante, leave that. I think that's going good for me, rather than blowing 2 turns and having one extra die roll. So let's go ahead and see what we got here. And I think this is going to be a pretty good one for us. So we have the peak and the flip. Okay. All right, this is going to be pretty good, because we know we want to flip this one. Our pull, which is here, so we want to flip this one. So that's going to be good here, and we want to find out what this one is to see exactly where it is, to see if we need to flip or do anything here. So we're going to make sure we're going to keep ourselves in check. So this one will be one where we don't take advantage of Dante's skill whatsoever. We'll peek at these 2 to make sure that we are correct, that this is the pull that we want to flip to the push, and then figure out what this is exactly. So here we go. It is the pull, so we know we're going to want to use our flip token to flip that one eventually. And this one is the gear. Okay. All right, this is actually really good, guys. All right, so what we'll do, now that we know what these are, we'll go ahead and use our flip. There we go. So now we know that we have the key, which we need the key. We know we have the push, which we know we need the push. And we know we have the gear, which we need the gear. And again, with this one, the order does not matter. So we will now use our last action, our 3, to solve this diagram. Let's go ahead, key, push, gear. That goes now to our diagram pile, because in our game, we'll mark the ones we have completed. And we will go ahead and tick up our points to 5. And now carry on to the room. So now we're going to remind ourselves, for the room, we want the spring, the push, and the levers. So now we know that this one we want to flip. This one we want. So these are the 3 that we want. These are what we're dealing with. And then, of course, we're going to need to do a little bit of maneuvering around as well. We're going to want to rotate these and flip this one. That's our goal. So let's go ahead and let the room go now. So here we go. There we go. All right, so now what we should have, let's think about this for a minute. What we should have is our push, our gear, which again we want to flip for the room, and we have the levers. So the levers is in the right spot, and these two just need to be flipped. Go ahead and tick our round token up towards where we are now into round 4. We definitely want to be able to potentially re-roll one of these. So our absolute best case scenario is going to be to get a flip and a swap. We have enough turns that we can let the room help us to keep kind of moving things around, so we can go the 8 rounds to try to flip these. So we have a lot of turns to try to roll what we need there. So I think we're in good. I think we got this one in the bag, but when you're rolling dice, you never really know. So let's go ahead and take our roll, and we have the swap, which is very good, and we have the peak. So the very first thing we're going to want to go ahead and do is swap these two. Okay, so now we know we have the gear, the push, and the levers. So we have spring, push, levers. So now all we have to do is figure out a way to flip this one. So now we will go ahead and re-roll our peak die, and we can hopefully get to one of 2 different things, and that would be the flip, of course, or the disarm, because by disarming this, we will let the room flip it for us. So let's go ahead and re-roll this one, hope to see if we get the flip or the disarm, and we got the peak again. So that didn't do us any good. The only downside that we're going to have now is that when the room goes, it's going to put this over here, and then our only roll option. Oh no, actually that's going to be pretty good. All right, here we go, guys. Let's see what we're doing. Let's go here, let the room go. We're going to go there. That was the room's turn, so now it's ours. So we're going to go there. So we're going to roll. Here we go. This is what I'm thinking, guys. All right, so now we have the peak and the swap. We don't need to do any of these, but what we do want to do is figure out a way to flip this one. So we will turn both of these 2 in, and we will do the peak of the failsafe, flip the stack, and rotate all 4. So we're going to go ahead and do this one, and that is within the hidden mechanism. So we're going to go ahead and peek at that one. Yes, it is the gear. So we're right there. We're going to want to flip that. So it is now the lever, what we're going for, and it is going to go ahead and rotate everything for us. So that is going to go like so. So now, let's see here. So now we have the levers, the key, the spring, and the push. And we want the spring, the push, and the levers. So we just need to go just a few more turns. We'll just let the, just let everything go, all hunky-dory. So now we're going to say our turn is over. We don't need to do anything else. Now we're going to let the room go. So now the room will rotate everything. Okay. Try to keep this in our heads. And so now it's going to be our turn. We're going to kick ourselves back up to round 6. So now we're going to remember we have the key, we have the spring, we have the push, and we have the levers. And we want it to go one more time. So we can roll, it doesn't matter. We don't want to do anything. We're going to go ahead and end our turn, let the room go. So the very first, so the room's going to go there. And so now it's our turn again. And so we'll kick up the room count to 7. And everything should now be spring, push, levers, key. All right, here we go, guys. Let's find out. Let's try to solve the room. Well, let's see here. Let's do something real quick. Let's make sure that I didn't. Now that I'm trying to, as I'm talking, I'm not thinking. We'll go ahead and roll our thing. We will turn in both so we can do a peek. Let's make sure. Let's go ahead and peek at these two. Let's just make sure I've rotated the room like I was supposed to. Spring, yes I did. Push, yes I did. So everything should be good. So now let's go ahead and try to solve the room. So we have the spring, we have the push, and we have the levers. Congratulations. That was room 2 of Triplock. Definitely a more difficult challenge within room 2 as compared to room 1. A lot more things you need to think about, keep in mind. There's a lot more strategy going on because you're thinking about the diagram. You're wanting to make sure that you set yourself up for success after completing the diagram to going into the room. But this is a whole lot of fun. I enjoyed this play immensely. And I'm looking forward to our next playthrough, which will go on into room 3. But until then, let's go ahead and let's pick our character for the next. We have now used Dante, so we'll set him off to the side, and we have used Axe. We'll set him off to the side. So now we have 4 characters that we can choose from. So we're going to go ahead and go there. So it'll be 1 on the die roll, wherever that die is. Let's go ahead and pull that out. So we are going to have a 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's see here. And if we roll a 5 or 6, we'll just re-roll until we get 1, 2, 3, 4. 2. So Elizabeth will be my choice. But again, I ask you guys to help me pick who should I be. Again, your 4 options: Charlie, Elizabeth, Adeline, and Doc Elliot. Hope you enjoyed the playthrough. I hope it helped you decide on if this is the type of game for you and if you want to go ahead and pick it up. I myself am having a blast going through here and look forward to carrying on into room 3. Till next time.